On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, I've got my body oil, my incense, and my environmental records, so I am ready to discuss the lyrics for Movie Star from the Crystal Ball collection. Recorded in March of 1986 at Prince's Galpin Boulevard home studio, the same day that he recorded Witness for the prosecution, Movie Star was a song considered for the abandoned Dream Factory project in '86 before finally seeing release on the 1998 Crystal Ball compilation, not to be confused with the 1986 Crystal Ball project. And speaking of Crystal Ball, in the liner notes to that 1998 triple album, Prince writes, "Imagine Morris Day doing Movie Star." That's who it was written for, the time. And then he also mentions about, he also comments that it's D'Angelo's favorite bootleg, which inspired Prince to add it to the Crystal Ball collection. Okay. And while I don't doubt the intention or the inspiration, it's curious to me that Prince was still thinking about the time nearly 2 years after they broke up. So by the spring of 1986, even the band that was created to replace the time, The Family, had already ended. So I feel like what this tells me as a fan and a listener of Prince's music is that he loved and craved the creative outlet that the time and Morris Day, and I guess to a somewhat similar but lesser extent the Jamie Starr personas offered him creatively. You know, Movie Star is a perfect example of a song that should have been for the time, if the time still existed, or could have been for Morris Day, if Prince and Morris Day were still communicating and still were friends, which they really weren't, in '86 at least. They would reconcile and work again together on Corporate World, which turned into Pandemonium in the late '80s, early '90s, but, you know, Movie Star was written in this time frame where they were on the outs. After the Purple Rain project ended, they went their separate ways. There was a lot of bad blood between the two of them. And so, as close as they were there for a while, it just kind of ended. But Prince felt like Prince was still kind of holding on to the idea of Morris Day and Jamie Starr and that whole pimp persona, doing things with a more comedic approach, writing songs with a more comedic approach. And Movie Star is certainly a perfect example of that. This is not a song Prince would have ever added to one of his own albums in the '80s. It was perfect for that persona. And an interesting fact about the song is that Miles Davis, who received a copy of this song from Prince in 1987, would play the song at his live shows in '87 and '88. So he and his band basically would play their version of Movie Star live with no lyrics, just instrumental, which is, I guess, a little bit odd to me that this song was chosen by Miles to perform live. There was never any studio version of this song played on any kind of studio album by Miles Davis, but we know that Prince and Miles collaborated a little bit in the Can I Play With You project, which also got shelved, but I just find this to be an interesting aside, and I will drop a YouTube clip of Miles and his band performing Movie Star live. Okay, so enough lead up, let's get to the lyrics. And the song is kind of broken up into sections where Prince is kind of talking and Prince is singing. So the first section of lyrics on Movie Star is Prince talking. Let's see. Body oil, check. Incense, check. Environmental records. Double check. I'm going to get some serious draws tonight. Think I ain't? Let's see. If I tell Gilbert and Jerome to meet me at 11, and then I creep at 10, that'll give me an hour of free reign. Mo draws. Okay. So, first things that jump out to me is the mention of environmental records. So this is kind of a WTF reference. At least always was for me, because, it cracks me up, because he mentions later in the song that environmental records are supposed to make you horny, but they just make him want to go to the bathroom. I'm thinking environmental records are something that's supposed to put you to sleep. Like, that's what I think of. I think of this type of thing as now being one of the settings on your white noise app that you might have on your phone to kind of help drown out outside noise. You can have white noise apps that include like crickets chirping, water running, like all the stuff that he's talking about in response to these environmental records. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine crickets chirping and water running intending to make someone horny. So I'm thinking this is just a kind of a joke where Prince's character in this song misunderstands the purpose of environmental records. I don't know. Nobody that I know or can imagine using a white noise app to set the mood for a romantic interlude. Anyway, so he mentions that and he's like, oh, double check. So it's like really important for him to do that. Let's see, what else about this opening section of lines jump out to me? Serious draws, just him mentioning Mo draws, serious draws. That's very much a Morris Day pimp phrase, that you would imagine him saying, whether or not it's on a Time song or in Purple Rain, talking about all the lovely ladies that he has coming to visit First Avenue. Mo draws, Mo draws. Let's see. Oh yeah, and there's mentions of that in Under the Cherry Moon as well. And I guess to a maybe another extent, Prince's character in Under the Cherry Moon, Christopher Tracy, is a little bit like this as well. Has these kind of mannerisms and phrases that he uses, he and Jerome, as tricky. So it extends into the Under the Cherry Moon parade era, which the song was written around. And I think it's funny about, he mentions, if I tell Gilbert and Jerome to meet me at 11, then I can creep in at 10, gives me an hour of free reign. So he doesn't want the competition from his friends, Gilbert and Jerome. He still wants an opportunity to hang with his boys, but he wants that extra hour without the competition, which I find hilarious. And Gilbert, it must be a reference to Gilbert Davison, who was Prince's head of security after Big Chick had left, and would ultimately end up being a director at Paisley Park Studios later on. But at this time in 86, I think he was just mostly known as being Prince's friend, confidant, and head of security. And then Jerome, of course, has to refer to Jerome Benton, another person who Prince kind of became close with after the dissolution of the Time. Obviously, he was a co-star in Under the Cherry Moon, which had been finished filming in late 85. Member of the Family. He would bring him on stage as a member of the Expanded Revolution in 86. So Jerome was a close friend at this time, so it makes sense that he would reference him here. Okay, so then the next section of lyrics, Prince is singing. So he sings these. 9:30, getting dressed. Had a couple sips of wine. Boom, I swear to God, my suit was hanging fine. Everybody at the club freaked when I stepped from my limousine. They said, ooh, it's good to see ya. I said, it's good to be seen, you know what I mean? Not too much here to mention. It's just mostly Prince. Prince as this character, showing off. That's what a lot of this song is about. Prince showing off as this character, this movie star, this overconfident and very flamboyant personality. He's heading to the club, has a couple of sips of wine maybe to loosen him up. Looking good. Again, I envision very similarly the scene at the beginning of Purple Rain when Morris Day Morris Day's character is looking at himself in the mirror as he's getting dressed to go out, constantly dressing to impress, wearing suits, tailored suits, and the best clothes, even if that doesn't accurately portray his lifestyle in Purple Rain. But in this song, the character Prince is playing here is supposedly a movie star, so it makes more sense for him to be riding in a limousine and dressing in expensive suits. And the line, "Oh, it's good to see you," and I said, "It's good to be seen." Again, that's very much so what the intention of this movie star is wanting, is to be seen, to be present on the scene, and getting the attention and the adoration that he's craving as, an outwardly ambitious personality who is very outgoing and very much knowing that to be seen is an important part of being a celebrity. All right, so the next section of lyrics again is back to talking. So Prince is talking or rapping, not really a rap, mostly just speaking over the music. "I'll tell you what's good. It's a good thing we live close, because almost suffocated in that car. Next time I won't wear so much Paco Rabanne or whatever that stuff. I wonder if they got potato chips up in this. Man, this ain't like them house parties we used to go to. That's all right. I'm clean." So he self-owns a little bit here by complaining that he put on too much cologne, to the point where it's almost choking him out in the limousine with the windows rolled up. And of course he mentions by name, even though he purposely mispronounces it, but it's supposed to be Paco Rabanne, which is a high-end cologne, and he calls it Paco Rabanne. And I imagine, I guess it's for comedic effect, the intentional mispronunciation of the cologne. And then the comment about hoping potato chips are at the club is another funny aside. I think this is more likely a reference to how, the parties that he used to go to and attended before becoming a movie star were a little, I guess, lower class, or, had less fancy food, fancy drinks. It was just more low-key. Grab some potato chips and maybe a bottle of wine or some beer. And that was the party. Now it's high-end this, high-end that, but he's still kind of wishing there were some potato chips, which probably he's not going to find them at this party or this club that he's going to, especially if he's arriving in a limousine. And if he's a movie star attending a party with potato chips seems a bit funny again. And I think it's kind of like one foot in his old life and old hangouts, old friend groups, remembering the days before he became famous, and then one foot in, of course, the current state, which is superstar, movie star, celebrity. And his character is balancing, the desires for the old, the reminiscing of the old parties that he used to go to, and remembering his old lifestyle, while still obviously participating in the high end and the high life. So now he's singing again in the next line. "Tonight, hey, I'm a movie star. I see myself on the silver screen. Tonight, it don't matter who you are. I'm the only star on the scene, you know what I mean?" Not much to really talk about here either, I think. He was about to star in his second major motion picture. The filming was basically wrapped at this time. The movie would be released in the summer of '86, so just in a few months. Parade had just come out. He was a movie star. I mean, plain and simple. Purple Rain 2 years ago was a major hit, made him a star in a level that he had never probably even dreamed of. And now he's acting and directing another film where he is the headliner. So he is a movie star, and maybe some of that newfound identity is not just a musician, but now a film and movie star, an actor, rubs off a little bit on the lyrics here, and kind of also obviously an inspiration, because he's attending movie premieres, and he'd done that with Purple Rain. He was about to do that again with Under the Cherry Moon, and so it's a different level of fame than it is for musicians. Being a movie star provides the artist a more broad appeal, potentially, if the movie is a success. Some people who may not like the music of Purple Rain may go see the film. People who may not like the music of Parade may go see the film. So it's opening him up to a new audience, potentially, by being a movie star. I'm the only star on the scene, you know what I mean? So that line, again, this character is feeling himself, obviously a little bit on the ego tripping a bit, and it gets even worse later on in the song. Some of the lines really point to this person having a major ego trip, and the movie star lifestyle is going to his head for sure. And then the spoken section, man, I hate making movies, but I like that money. Think I don't? Check me out. I just walk in, don't even find a seat. Just threw my coat right on the floor. Grab somebody for a quick dance. Boy, girl, it don't matter no more. I'm hot. Shit, Mix was right. Bold, Lord. This is where it really starts. I mean, obviously there's comedic lines throughout this song. The song is just straight up funny. And some of these lines in this section and later sections even double down on the comedy. Just imagine somebody just walking into a club and throwing your coat on the floor because you're just like, I don't give a shit. Like, this is who I am. I'm too important to wait for the coat check. I'm too important to wait for somebody to take my coat. I'm too important to care about social norms. I'm just going to do my thing. And honestly, like, I'll just get a new coat tomorrow if this coat is soiled due to me throwing it on the dirty floor. And then the whole grab somebody for a quick dance, boy, girl, it don't matter no more, I think also is an intentional funny line. Yeah, it blurs the lines between what Prince has done much of his career through some lyrics, especially early on, about is he straight, is he gay? Here he's just kind of playing that up like, I don't really give a shit what you think. I'm going to dance with whoever. And it's not important to me what gender this person is that I'm dancing with. What's important is that I dance. I need to show off. I need to show that I'm the shit. And it's important for me to be flamboyant. And that's a very flamboyant move. Throw the coat on the floor and grab somebody for a dance regardless of their gender. A very flamboyant move that will get attention. He does mention, the early in the section, man, I hate making movies, but I like that money. Yeah, the tedium of making movies is referenced, I think, here. The pre-production, the filming, the post-production, the mixing, the music, promotion, all of that. A process of making movies from screenwriting to release could take years. It's tedious, I would imagine. Not that I would have any, frame of reference for that, but just imagining that. And he already felt like the release process of music was tedious. The promotion of it, the getting it out there, and then playing concerts, although I'm not saying he didn't like playing concerts, but the concerts get very repetitive, playing the same set list over and over. There's some tedium in the art of creating art for consumption, especially for monetary consumption. And I definitely think that he felt that with Purple Rain, and is likely starting to even get a little wary of it on movie number 2. Baby, do you wanna get off? Tonight I'm a movie star. I see myself up on the silver screen. Tonight it don't matter. I'm the star on the scene. Very similar lines. I think that's about as close as you're going to get to a chorus in this song. So nothing more to say there. Mix was right on the one. The kick drum hit the triple beat. Baby, I was poppin'. Did one spin, did a second. Did the splits, came up, looked around, joint was hoppin'. Somebody say movie star. So he's, just talking about his dancing and Again, showing off the flamboyance, spinning, dancing, doing the splits. Dance moves that Prince did very commonly on stage and in music videos. Those were all part of his repertoire of dance moves, splits, and spins. I watched recently the Sign of the Times movie on the big screen on IMAX when it came out in late August, about a month ago, and I never really paid attention to how many times Prince does the spins. Man, if I took a shot or even a drink of beer every single time that he spun around on the Sign of the Times movie, I would have been trashed within the first 30 minutes of that film. He spins a lot, so just pay attention sometime if you never have. He spins a lot. He uses that move quite often, at least in the 80s. I haven't seen enough videos of him performing live where I've paid attention to that. I'm guessing that's not really part of his moves later on in his career. If I'm thinking of concerts that I've seen on video or on YouTube or whatever from the 90s or the 2000s, especially the late 90s. In the 2000s and beyond, that's not really something he did as much, but certainly in the 80s and probably early 90s, those spins were very commonplace on his concerts. So that's all I really have to say about this section of the lyrics. So check it out. You want to dance? Are you wearing that Paco rabbit or whatever you call it? Oh wow, that's dog. What? Speak up. I can't hear over that suit. Maybe you can hear this. Am I supposed to be impressed? That's right, Rolls Royce. Check it out, baby. You want to dance now? Ha, maybe next song. Yeah, right. Dance floor's not big enough, you fat cow. Okay, so now Prince is getting into it with another woman. Prince Vault says it's Wendy, but I thought I read somewhere in the Parade and Sign of the Times book that they mentioned Susanna having a part in some of the lines in the song. So I don't know which one. I don't know which sister it is, if it's Wendy or Susanna. If anybody knows for a fact, but I'm just going based off of what the two sources the main sources that I use for background on these songs from this era. They're twin sisters, so they could sound a lot alike, obviously. So I don't know which one it is, but nonetheless, this is more of a, hey, I'm a movie star. I'm again the shit, and you really need to pay attention to me. And somebody being unimpressed with one, the cologne that he's wearing. As he mentions earlier in the song, he put too much on, so he probably just reeks of it. And this woman is very much put off by how much cologne he's wearing, and she calls him out on it, and again mispronounces it, Paco Rabbit, or whatever you call it. And then the suit that he claims is, earlier in the song he says, my suit was hanging fine. Well, now this same suit is being dragged. I can't hear you over that suit, meaning it's loud. And wearing a loud suit means it's gaudy. Maybe it's the colors are very gaudy, or maybe the fit is very outlandish. I don't know exactly what's wrong with the suit, but it's loud. And then you imagine he says, like, maybe you can hear this, and maybe he's dancing around her or trying to dance with her, and she says, am I supposed to be impressed? And then he must have pulls out or mentions his car or pulls out the keys to his car or something. That's right, Rolls Royce. Check it out, baby. So obviously Rolls Royce is a very high-end vehicle. So showing off, trying to impress, playing the part of a movie star who is really just there to be seen and impress as many people as he possibly can, and ideally impressing a woman into bed is what I have to assume here, and using all of this fancy cologne and fancy cars and fancy suits and fancy dance moves to impress a woman enough to get her to come home with him. But this woman is completely turned off by all of the pomp and circumstance and the posturing. Then he resorts to insulting her when, she's clearly shown no interest. Dance floor's not big enough, you fat cow. Okay, that's harsh. And you hear him say, oh wow, that's dog. That is not a phrase that I was very familiar with or familiar with at all prior to this listening to this song for the first time in the 90s. Using context clues, it's very clear that he's talking like, oh, wow, that sucks. Or this is a bummer. I take that to mean, wow, that's dog. It's just, damn. Nothing more, nothing less. Mentions about the mix. It's about the mix. Oh, baby, I like that. But the kid gonna show you a few tricks. Can I play with you? Okay, he calls himself the kid. I find that interesting. Again, 2 years after Purple Rain, he's still referring to himself as the kid. The kid's going to show you a few tricks. Yeah, could he be saying the kid, meaning, just more casually, not the proper noun, the kid, but, just another descriptive term for a young man coming up. But I don't know. I don't think it's an accident. He calls himself the kid. Then he says, can I play with you? Which is, again, a repeat of a line from a song that he wrote with Miles Davis's input as an intention, or, intention to collaborate with Miles Davis about the same time. That was an early 86 song as well. Can I play with you? Baby, let's creep. I had enough of this action. Bartender on the house. Give everybody in here something. Man, I don't care. I got money to spare. You cute and your music's thumping. Yo, baby, get me the check. Yo, baby, my behind. I need my money. So we have to assume that's probably the bartender. So he's trying to convince the bartender to pay for drinks for everybody in the club or in the party. And the bartender's like, cool, I'll do that, but you have to pay me. It can't be one of these, oh, that person's famous, so I'm just going to do what he says. And he's definitely very careful about just, following this person's orders without any kind of compensation. Say, Brother Carruthers, can I get some credit? No? As much money as I done spent up in this nasty joint, you need to be slapped. Darling, shall we leave now? Go to Hades, boy. So I think there's some back and forth between him and this bartender, where the bartender is not doing what Prince wants him to do. Very similarly, I guess, to the scene in Purple Rain, where Morris Day wants the most expensive bottle of champagne, and then, the waitress is like, well, who's going to pay for that? And, he feels insulted. Morris Day is insulted by that comment. Keep the change, and then he tells Jerome to go get this change back. It's all kind of falling into that, like, I've got so much money, I don't care, but I really don't, or I'm still, maybe haven't gotten all the advances for my latest film, and I living a lifestyle that doesn't allow me to have a lot of extra spending cash. I don't know why he can't afford to pay for these drinks that he wants to show off. Obviously he's doing this to show off. Look at me, I'm a movie star, I'm rich, I'm famous. I have so much money to burn, I can just buy everybody's drinks in the place, but I actually can't. I don't really have the money, at least not on my person in this moment, and I don't have any credit because apparently I've been doing this enough times at this club where the bartender or the owner or whoever is like, yeah, I'm not offering any more credit. I can't put anything more on your tab until you pay your tab. That's the kind of the impression I get, and it turns into this little bit of a back and forth that gets nasty, where they said, go to Hades, boy. Obviously another way of saying go to hell. Prince's character, of course, resorts to insulting again. Now, first he insulted the girl that turned him down by saying she was a fat cow, and now he's insulting the place, calling it a nasty joint. As much money as I spent in this nasty joint, you need to be slapped. So he really doesn't take rejection very well, I think is the thing to walk away from here. I guess another way that you could even interpret not only this section of lyrics, but the entire song, is that this is all just a front. So this could be just Prince's character in the song maybe having a little bit of fame, a little bit of clout, and going to just a regular old club, or, a club that he used to go to before he was, quote unquote famous, or before he received this clout. And he's obviously just trying to show off. Just trying to show off to his old friends, to the old hood, to strangers that he now wants to impress. Hey, remember me back when I was nobody? Now look at me. I'm riding in a limo. I'm wearing expensive suits. I'm, so fancy I can do whatever I want, throw my coat on the floor. And I think it definitely can be interpreted that this is all just a front. This whole song is a front. And he's really not that famous. He's really not that wealthy. And it's more of just a way to show up at an event, to turn people's heads, to make people think that he's more well-to-do, more famous than he really is. And maybe that's why in the song, some of the clues that this could be a potential interpretation of the song is that people are not impressed. Because if he really was this enormous movie star, with an A-list movie star, people would likely be less willing to insult him to his face, and they would give him credit. Some of the signs in the latter half of the song that maybe he isn't all that after all. So anyway, I just thought I would offer that interpretation of the song, that this really is more of a front, and this person, this character he's playing, isn't the movie star he's playing himself up to be. So now apparently all of this somehow worked on a woman, someone who I think we learned has had a bit too much to drink, but it worked. This woman comes home with this character, and he says, "So you like my crib? It's not mine, it's rented. Say, how much did you have to drink?" And then she says drunkenly, "What's the biggest lake you've ever been in?" Which is such a random drunk person question to ask. I find that funny because, again, it's very, very fitting and very realistic. A brain under the influence isn't always thinking logic, isn't always thinking what would be an actually good question or good topic of conversation with this person I don't know that I'm now at their place with, to ask a seemingly frivolous question with, apropos of nothing. What's the biggest lake you've ever been in? So random. And then he kind of brushes that question off. Say, so do you like environmental records? Crickets chirping, water rushing. It's supposed to make you horny. It just makes me want to go to the bathroom. Actually, this one's not too bad. Check it out. So, what's your name? Oh, wow, that's dog. And that's how the song ends. So you just get this picture of this woman that's come home with him. Obviously, he doesn't even know her name. He's trying to get her name now while he's attempting to make her horny with an environmental record, which is hilarious in and of itself. And then because, obviously you've gotten the impression that she's had a lot to drink, because he even asks her that question before. So how much have you had to drink? Because he's getting the sense now that she's a bit wasted. And then so drunk that she passes out, so he's not getting any draws tonight. And him saying at the end, "Oh wow, that's dog," is definitely another, again, using context clues to imply that means, oh, damn. That sucks. This is just a funny song. It's just a funny song, bottom line. Whether or not you like funny songs, if you prefer Prince songs to be sexy or emotional or funky or, very dance driven or very guitar driven, it's kind of, from a musical standpoint, it's got a danceable groove. It's a bit odd in its structure. It's mostly lyric driven. You got that boop, 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 boop that kind of repeats throughout, but can you really dance to that? Not so much. The sections where Prince sings has a different beat and different music behind it, but those are so not infrequent, but they're short because they're always cut up with the boop 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 parts where Prince is talking. So I don't know how you could dance to the song. It's more just to sit down, listen to it, get a chuckle, tap along, and laugh at the lines. That's how I've always listened to this song, and that's how I continue to listen to the song and enjoy it for that. It's I think one of Prince's funniest songs. But what does the book have to say? So this entry is from March 14th, 1986. There's actually a pretty big introduction or prelude on the section talking about Prince's relationship with Jerome Benton and how they were friends and how Prince liked to keep him around because Jerome was just a fun person to be with, somebody calls him like Switzerland, I think Peggy McCreary calls him Switzerland. He was always happy, kind of, that's basically saying a peacemaker, not somebody who's going to stir up shit. And then Jerome actually offers a pretty funny story about his, kind of the nature of his friendship with Prince was interesting nonetheless. Like Prince wanted him to go out and they wanted to go out, or would say, let's go out. And then Jerome would be waiting for Prince to come by and pick him up to go out. And it just 10, 11, 12, still no Prince. And it was kind of like, this is very par for the course, good intentions, but then doesn't follow through always. But then sometimes he did. And so this is the story. He pulls up now. We're like 35, 40 minutes from the club downtown because Prince lived out in the suburbs and downtown Minneapolis was a solid 35, 40 minutes. We pull up, double park in the no parking zone, get out of the car. Of course, the bouncer opens the door and we walk right in. Does this sound familiar to the lyrics of Movie Star so far? Get a quick drink, stand around for a minute, feel the vibe. Prince was seeing what people loved, what turned people on, honing all that stuff into a cachet of what it was going to take to be successful. We'd jump back in the car, we'd go to Perkins, or we'd go to Rudolph's. We'd sit in the corner, and he's vibing on what people experienced that night. And then we'd jump back in the car, and we rolled back through downtown, looking at all the crowd clearing out of the clubs, and we rode back either into the studio, or he'd drop me off at the home. The next morning he called me. I want you to come by and listen to a song I did. So he was in his element of nurturing what he needed to continue writing. And I think that's a pretty solid explanation of this song. Not that Prince was the guy throwing his coat on the floor, dancing with some random people, bragging about what he had, bragging about his car and his clothes. Yeah, Prince looked good, and he was, he never slummed it at this stage of his fame. But doing this and being so showboaty or so transparently desperate for attention, desperate for adoration from random strangers at a club doesn't sound like Prince either. He was a bit too reserved and too careful about being that type of person. That just wasn't what he was. And if it was more of a wish fulfillment or a second part of his personality, or maybe something that he liked to express through music, but not through actual actions in real life. Hence the Morris Day and Jamie Starr personas that he created. During the session, Prince was seemingly inspired by a night similar to this, and this meaning the night that Jerome mentions, when he wrote and recorded Movie Star, a song that he indicated in the liner notes of the 1998 Crystal Ball release was created for the time. On the recording, Prince talks about getting some serious draws, and even uses the Morris Day old man voice, Jamie Starr, when he says Mo draws. Although the time had broken up 2 years earlier and showed no signs of reuniting, they were Prince's first real protege band and his outlet for his funk and rock recordings. Morris, especially Jerome, they meant a lot to him, confirmed Susan Rogers. I think it was hard losing Morris, but I kind of thought that Movie Star was about his own longings, so many of his own longings he didn't want other people to know about. He didn't want people to associate with Prince, like that pimp persona that Morris exemplified. That was Prince. It sprang from Prince's mind, but he didn't want people to know that that was Prince, so he had his alter ego. So when he says, I wrote Movie Star for the time, in some way, I'm guessing he might be protecting himself. He doesn't want you to know that's him. Okay. That is Movie Star. As we know, it was never released in the 80s. Just didn't find a project, although some would say that Miles Davis sort of released it by recording an instrumental version live, or performing it live as an instrumental, but it's not really. I mean, the Movie Star without the lyrics is kind of a silly song. You don't get nearly the full intent of the song without the lyrics, without the words, without the story, without the funny lines. Oh wow, that's dog. I mean, just that line by itself cracks me up because it's just it's a phrase I had not really heard. I'd heard a lot of phrases growing up listening to rap, and I never remember anybody saying any rap song, that's dog, or anybody growing up using that type of slang. So I don't know if Prince created that out of thin air, if he'd heard people say, oh wow, that's dog. Or maybe it was a very common and just I didn't hear it because I wasn't surrounding myself with people that said it. I don't know. Too many funny lines, though, to really just pinpoint a few, but I tried to highlight the ones that I thought was funny. What do you think about Movie Star? What lines do you find hilarious? What cracks you up about the song? Or maybe you don't like Movie Star. Maybe you think it's silly. Maybe you think it's frivolous. Maybe you think the character that he's playing here is obnoxious and not endearing whatsoever. I'm curious. What do you think about Movie Star? I like it. It's one of my favorites from Crystal Ball. All right, so that'll do it for this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show at pressrewind.net and on social media. And until next time, thank you very much, and goodbye.